Memorial Day is the first holiday a large number of Americans are vaccinated. Nearly 294 million doses have been given out. More than 40% of Americans are fully vaccinated, and just over half the population has gotten the first dose. According to Dr. James Baker, an immunologist with the University of Michigan's Medical School, getting the shot is the key to getting back to normal. Dr. Baker, welcome.
Thank you.
So we were talking beforehand, and you said that you think this holiday weekend is a milestone. Why?
I think it's a milestone because it's the first time that we're really treating our activities normally. I think people who are vaccinated can go and do the things they want to in a normal fashion. And importantly, I think it's going to differentiate people who are vaccinated from people who haven't been vaccinated real time. The things that they can do are going to be radically different.
Well, we know over the past year and a half, past holidays, Americans were told to stay home, not go out, not mingle. Now, as you mentioned, more people are vaccinated, new cases, new deaths are falling, and people are gathering in crowds for the first time, for example, the Indy 500. Is there concern, though, about the resurgence in cases with variants circulating?
Well, I think there is a concern about a resurgence, and this will be a real test case. We'll see whether or not the number of people that have been immunized and the number of people who have been infected provide enough immunity to prevent those types of problems and the new infections that are associated with them. I think the good news is that we know that collecting outside, as long as you're social distancing, basically gives you no risk. I think the real issue is when people collect inside, and for people who don't have vaccines. They're still at significant risk, and infection is still out there.
So the CDC updated guidance for masks at summer camps. This is a big talker right now. Vaccinated children don't need them. Unvaccinated kids do. Is this enough? Do you think that this is the right guidance?
I think it's the right guidance, but it's also a direction that everything's moving. People who have been vaccinated are going to be allowed to act normally. People that haven't been vaccinated need to protect themselves. And if they're going to do that with a mask, they're going to have to wear an N95 mask, a special mask that's fitted so they don't breathe around it. I think that, the reality of having to take these precautions all the time is really going to start to weigh on people who haven't been vaccinated.
There are so many countries around the world where they're desperate for this vaccine, for any vaccine, right? And here in America, we have states that are giving lotteries and giving various incentives for people to get vaccinated. Maybe we don't realize how fortunate we actually are to have vaccine available to everybody.
Well, on Memorial Day weekend, that would be a good thing to remember. I think if we could get ourselves vaccinated and sort of finish up the U.S., then we can make a more important push to get the rest of the world vaccinated. And certainly parts of Europe, Asia, and India in particular are suffering tremendously right now.
But a lot of people are still very reluctant to get the vaccine. What is your message to them?
So the good news is we've immunized hundreds of millions of people with these vaccines, and they've proven to be incredibly safe. If there was some rare concern about them, we would have seen it by now. So I think I can tell you uncategorically that these are safe and effective vaccines, and I would have every member of my family, every relative I have, everyone I care about be vaccinated as soon as possible.
President Biden said earlier this year that if everyone follows the guidelines, that we could have small outdoor gatherings by the 4th of July. Do you think Americans are doing everything they should be doing so far? And what are your recommendations for how they should behave this summer?
I think the real key is, as the president pointed out, getting vaccinated. If we truly have 60, 70, 80% of the population vaccinated, we can act normally, and we can do the things that we would normally do on the 4th of July. Nothing short of vaccination will allow us to do that.
And the guidance is still to wear a mask on public transportation, when you're in close quarters, on planes, et cetera. But this doesn't apply to, concerts or other venues where a lot of people are crowded together. Is this something that people should think about?
I think if you are in a closed area where there's not a lot of circulation and there are dense numbers of people, you are at great risk if you haven't been vaccinated. If you've been vaccinated, you basically can go anywhere without a mask. You know, the key about the transportation issues and wearing a mask there is to protect the unvaccinated. The vaccinated people have no concern. They are not going to get infected and they're not going to get disease.
All right, Dr. Baker, it's news we've been waiting a long time to hear. Thank you very much for joining us on this holiday weekend.
Yeah, so a great weekend, I think it will be.
Thank you.
In honor of Memorial Day, families coming to